Audio you test. Okay, okay. Audio test for YouTube. Audio test 2 for YouTube. Audio test number 2 for YouTube. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Test number 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Test number 4 for YouTube. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good morning, everybody. We'll testing. All right. Good morning, everybody. We'll commence the meeting in 1 minute. I don't know what's going on. I think we're playing musical chairs these days and moving things around, but all is good.
Test. Yeah. This is a good volume. Yeah.
All right. Our amazing committee coordinator for her first transportation committee meeting has told me we're good to go. So here we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's transportation committee meeting. We're on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Nation. That being said, at this point, I'll ask our committee coordinator to do a quick roll call.
Councillor Luloff,
Present.
Councillor Dudas, Councillor Gower, Councillor Johnson, here. Councillor Devine,
Here.
Councillor Bradley,
Here.
Councillor Troster,
Here.
Councillor Darouz, Conseiller Desroches, Councillor Lowe,
Here.
Vice Chair Kitts,
Here.
Chair Tierney,
Present.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. So we have no declarations of interest at this point. I'm going to do the agenda clearing, confirmation of the minutes. Thursday, the 23rd of March, 2023. Are these minutes confirmed?
Confirmed.
Thank you. Item 4.1, the TRC These are just responses to inquiries. So we have 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. And at this point, thank you, Vice Chair, for reminding me and keeping me in line. We do have a motion to be read in regards to item 4.3.
Whereas the response to inquiry OCC 2211 from Councillor Brockington on Maryvale Road was not approved for release prior to the publishing of the agenda for the April 27th, 2023 Transportation Committee meeting. And whereas the intention is to list this inquiry response on the April 27th, 2023 Transportation Committee agenda, therefore be it resolved that the response to inquiry PCC 2211 from Councillor Brockington on Maryvale Road be listed on the April 27th, 2023 Transportation Committee agenda.
So on that motion, is that motion carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to 5.1, the Barrhaven Light Rail Environmental Assessment Study, the revised alignment of Woodruff Avenue. We do have a delegation, so we'll hold that item. Item 5.2, Huntmar Drive widening and Stittsville Main Street extension, environmental assessment study recommendations. We have no delegations on this item. Does anyone see the need to hold this item, or is this item carried? Thank you very much.
Carried.
Item 6.1, the processing center for ASC, the Automated Speed Enforcement Processing Center. There's no delegations on this one. We do have a direction to staff, though, and we had a great discussion. Councillor Devon, where's your baseball cap? We had a great discussion this morning about this, and I think he's pleasantly surprised. Does have a couple of questions. We want to ensure that we're open and transparent about our ASC program and how it's going to operate, and we've been informed that there will be an open data feed providing the information to people and application developers, increasing our data sets within the city. But Councillor Devine did have a question in regards to it, I believe. So feel free, if you want to just quickly ask your question now, we can deal with this item. And if no one wants to hold it, we can carry it. Otherwise, we'll hold it for questions.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, there's a chair between us, Phil. Hopefully nothing else, though. So I had a direction to staff that was all to inquire about the possibility of getting quarterly reporting on these ASE cameras. And the motive behind my request was not at all to put any kind of obstacle or task before staff that would seek to challenge ASE placements. I am very much in favor of it, but I also know that many people in the community have doubts about ASE camera placements and see them as, nothing but a cash grab, and therefore. And so the reason I had been looking for the kind of quarterly reporting we were seeking was so that we could use that as a tool to transparently and simply put out to the city, to our community, these cameras are extremely effective. We know from police that they are the most effective means of interceding with speeders. And when I see people, in the community saying, why don't you just hire more cops? These things aren't effective. The kinds of questions I'd been looking for, the kind of data reporting I'd been looking for in my query was seek that I could just say, here's the narrative that is really going on. And so while I recognize that open data will allow anyone to just go out there and search for stuff, that's not the same thing as framing a narrative through a report, a request for a report that is meant to reinforce my belief, which is that they are a good thing. And so while I recognize that, so I guess the question I want to ask to you is, knowing that any kind of reporting from you in this manner would put work on your table, and this might not be the kind of question that staff asks, do you think it might be reasonable to assume that having so just for people to know, the kind of reporting that we had been looking for was on a quarterly basis to provide both performative and financial metrics, which are to include evaluating A, the number of tickets accrued at specific ASE camera placements, B, the most common days and times where tickets were issued, C, whether or not there has been an average speed reduction at these placements, and D, whether or not the implementation of ASE cameras has resulted in fewer reported incidents of speeding in the targeted area. In other words, data that would help me say to the community, and I assume that these reports would be accessible by the media, and the community could see and the media could report, and we could tell those of us who doubt and those of us who do not doubt, could tell our constituents these things work. Having open data means people got to go look for the success stories. So I guess my question to you is, if our goal is advancing this technology as the best ways of mitigating against speeding, would what we could collect and the narrative we could tell through this reporting be an effective tool in helping to promote the value and the efficiency of these ASE cameras, as opposed to just finding that data through Bob in his basement searching on the internet?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, I totally agree. And let me move a bit here so I can see you. The plan is actually, it's for our annual road safety action plan report. That was, the last one was in March, I believe. Is we're actually going to include a dashboard for every location where there's automated speed enforcement in that report. And it would tell the story in terms of, we look at three key metrics, indicators is reduction in operating speeds, increase in compliance, and reduction in the high speeders, which is anybody going over 15 kilometers an hour. So those are the metrics we've been collecting, and that's what we use for the pilot to recommend moving forward with a program. And so the plan would be for every location is to provide that information every year. And so we're still working in terms of how that would look like, but it's probably like a one-pager with the location, with some stats and some information. And that would be a plan. But for folks that were interested in more details, they could go to Open Data and get that information as well. We do have currently on Open Data the number of tickets that are issued per location. So that's already available on site, as well as the locations of the cameras. And when we add more cameras, which we're planning to do this year, we would continue to add that information on the.
Okay, with the understanding that in addition to the open data being available to all, that you're going to have the dashboard per placement, even though the dashboard will report these same things only on an annual basis as opposed to a quarterly basis, I'm satisfied with that, Chair. And I applaud and I appreciate the extra work you're going to put into the program to get that information available to the public. So I withdraw my direction.
Thank you very much, Councillor Devine, and I really enjoy working with you. I do see some hands up, but this is just agenda clearing. So sorry if folks, did you want this item held for discussion? Great. So we'll hold the item and go back to that. But at this point, we do have delegations. I do want to also acknowledge the fact that Councillor DeRuse is now joined us online. There were some technical challenges, but he is here. So thank you for joining us, Councillor DeRuse. Just still going through the agenda clearing. 7.1 speed reduction of March Road from Tarrant Road to Carling Avenue. There's no presentations. There's no delegations. I've worked with the councillor for the area, Councillor Curry. Is this item carried?
No, I'd like to hold that one.
You want to hold that? That speed reduction?
Or I believe so, or at least it's not. Or at least not carry it. I'm not supporting that. So.
Oh, so you want to dissent?
Yes.
Okay. The dissent is noted. We'll go back to the beginning of the agenda item because we do have a delegation that is here today. So the first item that is up is the realignment of the Barrhaven Light Rail Environmental Assessment revised alignment. And I do believe we do have a delegation that is online at this point.
Chair, I think Councillor Dudas has a point of order or something to make.
Sorry,
Chair. I just before we go to the next item, I apologize. I was having some connectivity issues. I was wondering if we could lift, and I'm happy to bring this up at the end, lift the snow clearing standards inquiry just onto the agenda. I just had one quick question for staff.
Oh, yes, certainly.
It can be at the end.
It already, but I'm looking around the council table. I see nodding of heads, thumbs ups. So you're good to go, Laura.
So I'll wait till the end then, because we have a delegation.
Great. Did you want to go ahead with your quick question now before we get the delegation on for the other item?
Yes, absolutely. It's just, I wanted to thank staff. It was really insightful to see how Ottawa compared to other municipalities. It was actually shocking to see that in many other municipalities, they don't even have timelines for when they clear major roads even or sidewalks. I think, once again, I'm so used to getting those emails about, people having negative experiences with our snow clearing crews, that this was really helpful. My question is, having seen all this, seeing that Ottawa comes out, above and beyond in many cases, I do know that staff are working and continue to be working and are providing some insight through the winter maintenance standards report that's coming out, that we can anticipate that there might be even additional improvements. I just wanted to know, I see Quentin's on the line here, how can we use this information, our comparisons to other cities, the findings that you've found and you're going to be reporting back on with the winter maintenance standards, to continue to improve our services to our community, as well as communicate to our residents about the services that we do provide.
The chair, through the chair, thank you for your question, Councillor. It's very much appreciated. We do appreciate the comments as well. Most certainly, we received the direction for the review of the winter maintenance quality standards in 2019. And I do believe it is a timely review, just in that we hadn't looked at the standards since 2003, and it's been quite some time. And we all know that most certainly the needs of our residents and their expectations have changed since then. And we've really grown into a multimodal city as well. And at the time of the 2003 standards, we didn't apply the lenses such as accessibility, gender equity, inclusion, as well as the climate change component as well, which are all a part of our current review that we're doing right now. In addition to that, most certainly what we've heard through our public delegations as well in consultation, was a really priority and focus on our active transportation. So all things that we'll be bringing forward with the report and recommendations as a result of our review of our winter maintenance quality standards. And most certainly this information that we gathered most recently is going to be most helpful in feeding into that. So I do look forward in the next couple of months of setting up meetings to give committee members and members of council a full briefing in detail on our review, in addition to the recommendations that we'll be bringing forward.
Once again, I just wanted to thank the staff who put this together, and also to shout out to our teams, like our snow and our road crews out there, because they're the ones that are delivering on these standards. I grew up in Kitchener, and if you didn't shovel your own sidewalk, you got a fine, right? And we don't have to deal with that here in Ottawa. I was shocked when I came to Ottawa and I realized, oh my gosh, this gets done for me. So we have it incredibly good in the city, and we're only going to get better. So I wanted to thank you guys for that. And this was really interesting to see. So anyway, thank you, Chair, for letting me commandeer the last couple of minutes, but I thought it was important to just ask that question.
Thank you, Councillor Dudas. And I think we all echo your comments, and thank you, Quentin, and your team. 26 snow events, 27 snow events, wood chippers out in the neighborhood. It's been goat rodeo for the last little while. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I know I always come up with these one-liners. All right, so back onto the agenda. We're going to the Barrhaven Light Rail Environmental Assessment Study revised alignment. We do have a delegation. There is a presentation, but I think we're all pretty read up on this one. So committee, do you need to see a presentation today, or should we just go right to the delegation? Okay, great. So we have the delegation online today, and look forward to hearing from our delegation. We have Peggy Rafter. Peggy?
Good morning. Hello, my name is Peggy Rafter, and I'm an ACORN member and have been a resident of Manor Village for over 30 years. Tenants of Manor Village formed a tenant union through ACORN in the summer of 2020 in response to the city's original plans to demolish their homes for Stage 3 LRT. After nearly 2 years of persistent actions and discussions with city staff and council members, ACORN members were very happy to see the city make the decision to redirect the LRT in order to maintain the existing housing. However, that excitement was soon overshadowed by smart living. The property owner at Manor Village, who issued mass N13 eviction notice to tenants just days before the city reached out to inform ACORN about their decision. The eviction notices were given to tenants so that Smart Living can do unnecessary renovations. Out of the 111 households that make up Manor Village, only 9 of the original households remain. While Manor Village Acorn members asked committee members to vote in favor of this new route for stage 3 LRT, that does not displace tenants. We also want to express our extreme disappointment that this is coming too late. When council voted to redirect the plans for the LRT, it specifically did this with the purpose to eliminate the displacement of tenants and consequently prevent the loss of low-cost housing units. Over 90% of those low-cost housing units have already been lost because of Smart Living and Forum's predatory renovation tactics. The once modest multi-generational family homes have been transformed into expensive student housing. The renovations in Manor Village could have been prevented. This is why Acorn members are calling on the city to introduce a renovation bylaw similar to the cities of New Westminster that was later adopted by the province of BC. The bylaw licenses landlords. The licensing system works as an effective ban on renovations because it takes any financial incentive landlords have to renovate tenants. This is done by providing clear requirements. Acorn is calling on councillors to introduce a similar renovation bylaw to stop bad faith, mass tenant displacements, and protect existing affordable housing in proximity to the LRT. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming out today, Peggy. Oh, we do have a question from Councillor Devine.
Why is there an Is that better? Okay. Thank you. I think I got it figured out. Hello, Peggy. No, I don't have a question for this delegate. I have an apology for this delegate. Normally, I would have liked to have said that I want to offer my continued support. So I'm well aware of what Peggy is talking about. But my support has been either ineffective or too slow. So I do want to offer my apology along with my sympathy and my understanding, Peggy. I think a lot of people at council and in your community had been happy when we saw the results of the diversion of the track away from Manor Village. But as we heard from you and we know quite well, the people who have benefited most from the diversion have been Smart Living. The value of their land has gone up. It was certainly, you and I can talk offline, an unfortunate series of timing of having a change in our director of housing. So lost time there in trying to get an organized approach. But all that to say, Peggy, I do support, I know this is not the topic for today, but I do support trying to get some kind of action about a renovation bylaw similar to what other cities have. And I hope we can continue to talk about it. But my continued well wishes for what's going on and apologize for not being more effective more quickly. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you for that. Seeing no further questions, Peggy, thank you for your delegation today.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. You're always very eloquent when you come out and speak. So on this item, councillors, is there any, Councillor Gower, apologies.
Yep. Thanks, Chair. Reading of the report, the line that stood out for me is there was a line about this leg of LRT, stage 3, is not within the current affordable plan, and that we do need 100% funding from senior levels of government. And this stage out to Barrhaven, the full stage is over $4 billion. I think colleagues are aware. I've suggested that we should be considering BRT as an alternative to LRT. I think we're going to need to study the pros and cons, and it may not be the right solution, but I think it's something we need to look at. So what I wanted to ask staff was, with this new alignment, was there any examination of its adaptability for BRT, or was that considered at all as part of this EA, or is it strictly looking at viability for rail in this corridor?
So I would ask Frank McKinney, the program manager for this project, to respond to the question. Thank you, Chair.
As part of the CA, we looked strictly at the LRT, and we did not look at the possibility of a BRT.
Okay. If in the future, this is a very big hypothetical, council were to decide that a BRT is a preferred solution from an environmental assessment perspective, would this mean reopening and completely restarting the environmental assessment, or is there a simpler process using the current EA? Could the current EA just be adapted or revised in some way?
I would ask Peter Stacy, who is our consultant team project manager, to give his response on that.
Thank you, Frank. And through the chair, the answer would be yes, there would be an addendum process that would have to be followed. And it would be following a motion of council. The broader issue of should this be LRT, should this be BRT, that's really something that would be looked at the transportation master plan planning process.
Okay, thanks, Chair. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Very, very good questions. Absolutely. I don't see any hands up for this item. Is this item carried?
Dissent.
And noted dissent by Councillor Lowe. Moving on to the. Oh, thank you. Thanks for keeping me in line. Item 6.1, the Processing Center for Automated Speed Enforcement. I know we'll have a couple of questions on this. We don't have any delegations, and I will ask members of committee if they do have questions to restrict it just to the processing center. Locations and other things we determine in December when it comes to budget time. That's when we talk about the number of cameras and where they go. I'm looking on the board here. I don't see any hands. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Ariel. So Councillor Troster.
Hi, thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, staff, for such an exhaustive report. You certainly made the case that this is a good opportunity for revenue generation for our city. I was just curious that in terms of anticipated revenue, is there a requirement around where that revenue is invested once we receive it? Is it pinned to specific projects like parking revenue is?
Thank you for the question through you, Chair. In 2021, when the Automated Speed Enforcement Program was approved by Council, there was a recommendation that was approved as well that would have all of the revenue, net revenue from the Automated Speed Enforcement Program directed to the Road Safety Reserve Fund. So it'll be reinvested in the items that are identified as part of the annual Road Safety Action Plan.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just want to say as a city, we need more revenue sources. And, you know, whether it's on these files or on housing and homelessness. And high property taxes are not popular. So to me, this is a clear win. And I look forward to see that kind of revenue generation. And also we want to slow down cars in our community. So thank you very much.
Completely agree. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Gower.
Thank you. With the 250,000 ticket cap in the Toronto Processing Center, is there any risk that we will not meet our projected revenue in the 2023 budget?
Thank you for the question through you, Chair. The 2023 budget was developed based on that 250,000 charge cap.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Great question. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if this is a question about possible gaps in future processing center or a concern about holdover from the current state. I am definitely in support of the program and the move to the processing center. In reading the report on it, there was mention that in the current Toronto Processing Center, we only process, I can't remember the percentage, but not 100%. There are a lot of tickets that we just don't get processed. And my question is, what happens to the people who caused the infraction for those unprocessed tickets? So if I incurred a fine, I get a $400 fine. Toronto doesn't process my ticket because they just run in a room. So it's not so much a question of do I still get debited $400 from my account, whatever the fee is. But I guess my question is, does it appear on my record that I have not paid my fine, and therefore when I go to renew my license, for example, it looks like I am delinquent in paying a fine? So what happens to those unprocessed tickets at Toronto?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Those charges are never issued to the vehicle owner.
Good. Great. And I assume, should there be any gaps in the new, if we approve this and move forward, should there be any kind of gaps if we weren't able to process all of these tickets, the same would be allowed, the same? Great.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Terrific question. And you could see the necessity of this. The program is unfortunately successful. We don't actually want to issue speeding tickets. I think that's the opposite of what we want to do, but it definitely is a working program. It'll give us much more opportunity to process those tickets. And on top of that, give us opportunities for other municipalities to tap into the service that we'll provide that won't cost taxpayers any money. Councillor DeBruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure you know that I don't support automated speed cameras in the communities myself, but I always see them as a cash grab, and I see another opportunity for us to build a new financial entity to get more money from the. And I put the safety. I rather that money personally goes to OPS, and I'd rather see more policing in our communities, and these are my own opinion, and this is how I feel about it. But I have also questioned, we can't even maintain right now at this moment. I like to see actually in FTEs and a new funding to be able to fix the councillor supported the program that we have for our community, that where we have a speed those speed radar that we have in our community, that we spend money from our traffic calming measure, that right now, if they're breaking and if they are broken, we can't even fix them. We have to send them to Montreal and spend $800. Councillors like yourself and me and everyone on that room, you invest money, you put those speed board, and then they don't work, and then you take them down and you have spent $3,000-4,000. Those are some of the importance that our committee and our staff should look at, instead of investing in a new facility to just take money from extra money from the resident. So, Mr. Chair, I cannot support that, and I respect everyone's opinion, but I'm hoping this committee will look into those speed board that we have in our community and make sure that they're being fixed and put back up, and not sending them to Montreal every time they're broken for an $800. You can't even find a staff in our facility to fix them or repair them. So I'm hoping that staff are hearing me and trying to find a solution for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Drews. Staff are here noting some of the opinions you have on that. Councillor Dudas.
Actually, many of my questions and comments have been said before by Councillor Drews, as well as you, Chair Tierney. For me, I don't see this as I don't want us to generate any revenue from speeding tickets. I think, frankly, it'd be better if we weren't getting any money out of this at all. But I think the reason why I really do support this processing plant here in Ottawa is because it bothered me more than anything to know that one person driving through this area is going to get a ticket, and then the next person driving through this area, both of them speeding, same rate, will not. So out of a level of fairness, that was missing, because we would be missing the opportunity to process everyone fairly. What I did want to say is, I personally don't support AST measures anywhere outside of school zones, maybe in the odd cases next to community parks. Like, I want to protect our kids, But frankly, roads are for driving on. I want more officers to be enforcing speed. They have the discretion to use common sense and human nature when pulling someone over. That's my personal opinion on this, but I do see the necessity to have this facility here in Ottawa instead of sending it to Toronto for fairness sake and for the other aspects you mentioned, Chair, about having other municipalities send their tickets to us. My only question to staff was, I do know the money does go to the road safety fund. I would really love to know, and forgive me, I know we've talked about this in the past. I didn't get a chance to delve into every aspect of that fund, where the money goes to. I do want to make sure that if we're investing that money, we're doing so for improving the NTCs, making sure that permanent infrastructure changes to our roads actually slow people down. So they're not getting tickets. It's not punitive measures. It's productive, proactive measures that permanently change our streetscapes to make it safer for all users. But also potentially the consideration, I'm looking at Chair Kitts here for inclusion of funding towards Ottawa Public Health, which does an incredible amount of work in proactive measures for, walking to school and healthy means of active transportation. So I really do want to look into that fund more so to see if we can proactively educate people on the benefits of staying slow in our communities and keeping other users of our roads in mind when driving. So that's more statement than question. And I appreciate it, Chair, for you indulging me on this. And I hope staff are listening to what I'm saying.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Dudas. And Bear Brook definitely has a very popular camera there. So we know that for sure. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. At the risk of further harping on the program, some of those opinions are pretty similar to my views, and I do believe that permanent measures that actually slow the street down rather than punishing people are more effective. But we have to work with what we have. Is it fair to assume that we currently pay some sort of fee to use the processing center in Toronto?
Thank you for the question through you, Chair. There is no additional fee to process through the City of Toronto. It's a cost-sharing agreement. All the participating municipalities pay their share of the costs for running the service based on the number of charges that are processed on a quarterly basis for each of the different municipalities. So we anticipate running our program in the same way.
Thank you. And there's talk of deploying a similar automated speed enforcement in some surrounding municipalities, smaller municipalities that surround Ottawa. So are there any opportunities for us to kind of share our facilities, whatever we build, share our facilities with say Kingston, Cornwall, and smaller counties and all that?
Yes, thank you through you, Chair. Yes, the plan is to start it off as a processing center, and once it's up and running, to open it up to other municipalities so that we can help increase the capacity across the province.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Great questions. Councillor DeRoche.
Thanks, Chair. Could you remind me, is there a provincial share of revenue collected from the infractions that we have? So when there's a ticket, the fine, what's the breakdown in terms of what we receive as a city and perhaps the province? I can't recall. Thanks.
Thank you through you, Chair. The city receives the set fine portion as revenue. So there's also a victim fine surcharge, which I believe goes back to the province, but perhaps Service Ottawa folks could help me on that. And then there's a court admin fee that comes back to the city as well. I'm pretty sure victim fine surcharge goes back to the province.
Yes, thank you for the question through you, Chair. Yes, indeed. The victim fine surcharge are remitted to the province.
What would be a percentage of that? So I guess what I'm seeing here is like 100% administration by the City of Ottawa, of which we collect a significant portion of revenue, and yeah, again, I share views here that it's money we don't want. We'd rather have compliance. So we have 100% of the administration, and then the province collects, I'm sure, millions of dollars through this to fund what likely is an important program, but they're not contributing to any assistance in administering this program, right?
Thank you, through you, Chair. They do not contribute to the processing costs, no.
Okay, and what's our timelines in terms of the remittance of that money to the province? Is there some strict rules in terms of how we pay them and how quickly we pay them?
Yes, thank you for the question through you, Chair. There is an exercise that's conducted on a monthly basis to remit those fees back to the province.
Okay. But is there any requirements in terms of timeframes we would do that? So in other words, we could pay them once a year, we could pay them 2 times a year. Is there any requirements there?
Thank you for the question through you, Chair. We'd have to get back to you. I can connect.
Yeah,
with staff
sure.
and get
Follow
back.
up on that. Obviously, very touchy subject, our relationship with the province, and I don't want to hurt that in any way. We want to have a positive relationship with them. And when I see a program like this, that we're doing 100% of the administration, and I do want to understand better in terms of what kind of commitments we have with the timelines for payment. And again, I'd be interested in that. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor DeRoche. Seeing no further questions, I did want to thank our amazing staff. There's a couple of big benefits out of this, actually, by the way. Aside from the fact we'll be able to process everybody on an equitable basis, I think is very important. The fact that we actually have bonded people that take chain of custody of the chips and drive them all the way to Toronto to process them, to visually ID them and do the ticketing and put them out takes a lot of time. So we've all heard as councillors, when people get 4 or 5 tickets in a row, that's going to reduce that time. And we're working, thank you, Phil, for the great work and your teams on processing things even quicker. So people learn made a mistake, should slow down in these areas. A big benefit, plus the fact is municipality will be able to take that money. And again, a quick reminder, it doesn't go into general revenues. This goes back into making our streets safer. And that's what we all want. So on this item, is this item carried?
Dissent.
And noted dissent by Councillor DeRose. Looking at the rest of the agenda, there's no in-camera items. We do have the IPD that's listed within the agenda. Seeing no one wanting to lift that very fun Public Works Department file, I'll move on to, we have motions which notice were previously given. We do have the speed reduction to 40 kilometers an hour on Woodruff Avenue between Richmond Road and Carling Avenue. If there's no objections or no one wishes to hold this item, is this item carried? Thank you. And item 10.2, sidewalk design guidelines. I've had some great discussions with Councillor Menard on that one as well. I do see a hand up from Councillor Dudas. Councillor Dudas.
I just had a question for city staff. I love that we're going to relook at how to make sidewalks more accessible for all users. I think this is a great motion for that respect. My only question was the last therefore be resolved. It's asking for a consultation element with a councillor. And I'm asking staff, is it appropriate for councillors to be consulted on but influencing permanent infrastructure like sidewalks when staff are pointedly designing sidewalks to be compliant with provincial regulations and laws?
And I believe Karina's online right now.
Chair, I do see Ms. Duclos in the meeting, but she may have had to step away for a minute. I'm not sure if there's other staff online available to answer that question.
Is there anybody in the room who can answer the question? Sorry, I'm not there to see it.
Councillor, maybe you, knowing Ms. Duclos is not here right now, If you wish to ask that question between now and council, unless, oh, wait, she's
Oh,
here.
there we go.
Hello. Thank you for joining.
Hello, I am sorry. I had to step away for a phone call, so I missed this.
No worries. You're a very busy individual. Councillor Dudas, can you please repeat the question?
Absolutely, Karina. Yeah, no, I was just, to be clear, I'm going to support this motion. I just had a question. We know that the province dictates so many things about what we do through highway traffic acts and design elements. AODA requires accessibility requirements. So my question was, the last Therefore Resolve specifically asks for councillors to be consulted on sidewalk designs and before construction. My question to you is this appropriate for councillors to be involved in that aspect of the conversation? Will they then therefore be able to influence the permanent sidewalk design when city staff are working within provincial laws to establish an actual design that meets that law requirement based on the outcome?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Chair. Councillor, you're absolutely right. We, our guidelines and our standards follow the Ontario provincial standards. Having said that, we have the ability to make some modifications based on our built environments. So our sidewalk standards actually adopt one particular sidewalk standard, but we also have an option B, we call it, it's a second option that we can use depending on what the situation of the neighborhood where we are putting down a sidewalk is. We also have the ability to go to a special situation if technically the standards that we have in place do not meet the needs of that particular community. So while we follow engineering standards and regulations, and we need to stay within also accessibility guidelines and commitments, we do have some level of flexibility. And consultation with the community and the ward councillors is important for us to get it right. And councillors know the community, they understand the needs, they understand what the challenges of that community can be. So between the community needs and our standards and our engineering analysis, we can maybe make modifications. So consultation is appropriate. Actually, is something that we do. And I think the motion is just speaking about maybe enhancing that consultation to make sure that all councillors and communities are involved in the decision making.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great. Thank you so much, Karina. I appreciate it. I'm glad you were able to connect.
Thank you. I apologize for that.
Don't leave us yet. Councillor Troster.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, Karina. That is really helpful. I was happy to move this forward on Councillor Menard's behalf. I know in my own ward, there's certain corners where there's 3 or 4 community housing buildings with a lot of accessible units that are clustered together. So if there's a strong demand from those residents for a preference on sidewalk configuration and we can accommodate them, I think it's great to have that opportunity. We have a lot of dense housing downtown, so we do have huge accessibility issues also with snow clearing and sidewalks and the way that those curbs work. So I just hope we can discuss more creative solutions in conjunction with the 2 designs on a case-by-case basis. So thank you, Councillor Menard, for putting this forward, and thank you, Karina, for being so accommodating.
Terrific, and thank you. And Councillor Menard, if you wish to speak to this.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chair. And yeah, thanks to Councillor Troster for putting this forward. When road reconstruction comes up, and often that occurs, councillors will regularly hear from residents about the potential design of the sidewalk. It's generally accepted that sidewalks, we look to remain flat where we can for the benefit of pedestrians, but to provide access to driveways, we implement those curb cuts. And so we've got 2 styles of sidewalk cuts that we do right now in the city. We've got the ramp style, where a third or more of the sidewalk drops steeply down towards the road. And we've got the drop style, or the traditional style, where sidewalks remain basically flat, but they kind of ramp up slowly to allow access to the driveway before ramping back up to sidewalk height. So at this time, both designs meet city standards for sidewalks with some exceptions, but the ramp style is preferred for residential streets in redesign. Residents have some views about both styles, and in the last consultation, I think it came back sort of 50-50 of what they preferred. In our area of town, ramp style tends to cause a bit more frustrations as many of the sidewalks become more hazardous, or the concerns in winter with those slips and falls. And so to address sidewalk design, there are really two aspects to this motion. One is staff are planning to review sidewalk design this year. So we just want to see a third design considered where the sidewalk remains flat and level and a mountable curb is installed for driveway access on the road. We've done this in other places in Ottawa. And in the last round of public consultations, council had directed staff to only ask residents about the two traditional styles, the ramp and the traditional style. But unfortunately, we want to make sure that we're seeing other styles considered. So we think it makes sense for the city to review this style of sidewalk as well. And obviously, this was the standard back in the 1990s when new developments were occurring in areas like Barrhaven. And so we use this type of design at Lansdowne Park. On Homewood Avenue, we've had that flat sidewalk with mountable curbs for driveway access. In other cities like Hamilton, they've implemented forms of mountable curbs to remain flat and level for surfaces. Second, the motion, since the ramp style and traditional style sidewalks usually meet city standards, we want to ensure there's some flexibility in design, obviously based on feedback from residents in that consultation that Karina and Councillor Dudas was speaking about. And so this motion will not change city policy. We're not looking to do that right now. It will simply add an additional style of sidewalk to be included in the upcoming review that staff are doing. And it will allow for just greater discussion about what's appropriate. And based on the last, feedback, we're kind of came back 50-50 on what people preferred or their concerns about them. It's, I think, a good idea to add a third option in there. So in the end, our hope is just to have standards and processes that help ensure we build the most usable and welcoming streets we can. And of course, Chair, sidewalks serve the needs of pedestrians. They serve the needs of people with mobility issues. We just want to make sure that we see that those streets are built prioritizing those needs. So thanks very much for considering this and appreciate staff's help in drafting it.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Menard. And I've already spoken with staff support this. They're fine with this motion.
Yes, Chair.
Great. Thank you very much. So on item 10.2 sidewalk design guidelines, is this item carried? It's so we don't have any notices of motions, no inquiries.
Late inquiries, right?
Did you? Oh, is it submitted already?
I have it here. Can I table it?
Certainly, and if you can email it to our committee coordinator as well, just so it's on the record. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, no, it's in follow up to the presentation we had on the payment processing. What are the and staff had committed to do this, but I do want it as part of the record of this committee. What are the provincial payment requirements and remittance timelines for the victim surcharge fee under the automated speed enforcement program? Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you, Councillor DeRoche. So the inquiry is noted and we'll get a copy of that. There's no other business. We have adjournment. Our next meeting will be May 25th, 2023. Thank you very much for your indulgence today, everybody.